How's your computer holding up? It did say in the description that it needs a good graphics card. I'm getting like 45 frames per second. How's your stuff doing? Good. Good. What? What's that? I see. Well, I mean, that stuff does happen, but... Well, here. Let me grab something real quick. You and me? We're gonna go on a little bit of a guided tour. Come on. So, you know, you go through all the tutorial stuff and you're looking for your first world. Well, I found this one. And I believe it was this exact spot right here where I was like, oh my god, this is beautiful. See, because before VRChat, I had played this game called AltSpace VR, which is like Dollar Tree VRChat, basically. And, you know, the spaces you could exist in and that kind of thing were nowhere near what this is, right? So I kind of compared the two in my head and I was like, oh my god, you know, look at this. So whether I made any new friends here or not, I knew I was gonna love this game one way or another. Yeah, when I first found this world, another thing that really spoke out to me was these lampposts. Because they kind of brought back a bit of a childhood memory for me. Every once in a while, in the month of August, some friends of my father's would have a cookout. And, you know, we were kids, so we'd be running around and playing catch and stuff. And it was just all around a good time. I really wonder how those people are doing today. Right, so, self-explanatory, right? Never have I ever. This is where I met my very first VRChat friend. We were just kind of both here together, and then he would get ahead of me sometimes, but he would always look back at me. Or I would look back at him. And we kind of formed a silent bond over it. And he and I still talk today. He's really cool. So anyway, let's go ahead and get this started. Ready? My god.
Never have I ever gave a secret Valentine to a crush.
No way in hell you've never done that. I mean, you saw it coming in, but you can't really see it anymore. We're underwater right now. That's the beauty of VR, you can't really drown. Such is the case when that one guy from before and some of his friends and I stayed up all night and hung out. It was really my first ever VRChat hangout, and I still remember it as if it was yesterday. So, one night in particular found me here with that friend from before and more of his friends. And I guess something I failed to mention before was that that very first friend of mine is from Chile. He's a Chilean man. So there was a Chilean man, a German man sitting somewhere over there, and some other guy from some other part of Europe sitting somewhere else. I don't remember where. But I was just kind of sitting here and I was like, my God, you know, I'm getting more experience to the cultures of the world than a lot of people will. And I didn't even have to spend thousands on a plane ticket or go on a bougie vacation or anything like that. I'm just in my bedroom, you know? And I think that's one of the cool things about video games. I believe it was right in this spot where I talked to the dude in the skeleton cloak thingy avatar for the first time. And while we don't really talk anymore, he set off a whole chain reaction of events. Let me tell you. Hey, yeah, so we're back here. Take a look at these lights for me. Take a look at the way they glow like actual lights. Something I had failed to mention up to this point is that, well, everything up to this point had taken place on the Quest version. I got my start on VRChat as a Questie. But then I realized, hey, I have a gaming laptop that, while the graphics card, it was a GTX 1650, it wasn't really, like, it's not really what you would consider VR ready, but I tried it anyway and it worked. So, it's been PC VR from that moment onward, and, you know, as you may know, a lot of different worlds look way better in the PC. And this world is perhaps the best example. Take a look at that. Take a look at that fucking sunset, bro. Ain't it just something else? Caught me off guard. So now we're in the Great Pug. Probably the first PC exclusive world that I ever visited. I wanted to test it out. But then, to my surprise, the dude in the skeleton cloak thingy from before, it had been like a week or two, a few days-ish. It had been a bit of time since then. He joined me. He joined me of his own volition. And he and I stood in this hallway and talked for a little bit. But then, apparently, oh, where the hell is it? Did they get rid of it? Well, anyway, the moon is supposed to be up there. And apparently it wasn't part of the skybox. It was a rendered object. So he got into an avatar where I could sit in his hand. And I think he even, like, it was some giant robot thing. And he reached out his hand to me and he was like, "Won't you take a poor sinner's hand?" And so I did. And he took me to the moon. And crashed my entire laptop. So, I can't find the world anymore, but you know how VRChat has the whole system of blue, green, orange, red when it comes to people's availabilities and such? One day, I think I just had a moment of clarity. The dude with the skeleton and the cloak and all that was on blue. And normally my social anxiety is like, oh, but they could have just forgotten to take it off blue, and if you join it'll become a whole big awkward thing. I think I was just feeling particularly brave that day. I don't know if it has to do with the moon or my menstrual cycle or what, but some days I'm just braver than others. And this was one of those days. So I joined him. And there were a bunch of people there, but the two that I ran into, him being one of them, they were very nice and very welcoming to me. And the three of us went on some adventures. And we eventually ended up here at the infamous Black Cat that you might have visited before and got your bad impressions from. Yeah, I mean, I don't blame you. The public instances can be pretty cursed, but a lot of people, it's also where a lot of people are. But anyway, I don't remember what kind of instance it was, if it was like a Friends Plus or a public or what. But we were sitting up here, and Skeleton Cloak Dude introduced me to my very first e-boy. I think it all began when I mentioned that I liked Attack on Titan, and he gave me a virtual kiss on the cheek. He sowed a very powerful seed in me that night. As you can imagine, it didn't go well, but you know, that's life. Well, it's nighttime now, but it was daytime when I was here. That same night eventually led me and Skeleton Cloak and a new girl with a Genshin avatar, here, to where you can rank things. Skeleton Cloak Dude was super into Guilty Gear, and Genshin, self-explanatory, and those are both subjects of ranking here. Let's see. They have animated cats. I don't know if you can see it, but, it's a tiger. What's he so angry for? Oh, that eventually led the three of us here to a room in the middle of the galaxy where it's raining somehow. And in this little pillow fort that I constructed for myself, the two of them stood outside in their way bigger avatars. Because, I mean, I didn't have this one back then, but I still liked being tiny. So they kind of crouched out there. I was in here feeling all snuggly and shit. And we just kind of talked about life all fucking night. It was one of those things where we were talking and talking, and then we realized we were tired, and then we lifted our headsets and it was fucking daylight out. I miss that shit. I miss that shit so much. Though it was mostly... Oh, I forgot to mention that Skeleton Cloak had turned into a bartender at this point. So now he's bartender guy. Bartender guy. It was mainly him venting about the things he was going through. But hey, we were there to listen. And it was still overall a very good time, and I wish I had people to do that kind of shit with again. I met a British music producer and a bunch of other people in this world. And we did the same all-nighter kind of thing. We stayed up all night just talking about different stuff. Yes, I thought he was really cute. And yes, we fell out of touch. This is the Never Met Dog. He reminds me of how single I am. So if you can believe it, this is my first foray into the backrooms. I found some other Backrooms worlds, but they didn't have entities, and I wanted entities, so this is what we got. We got Bing chillin'. Shit. Then, in my backrooming quest, I found this place, which looks drastically different than it used to. The textures were worse. There was a number on the wall above the door over there. And, I mean, I haven't gotten all the way through it, because one of the parts makes me really impatient, so... But do you want me to take you through what I do know? And then it turns into a chase. And not only do we need to memorize where we're running, we need to memorize colors too.
2 very boring minutes later.
Oh. So you died too, huh? Back in my day, there used to be a cake that you could find. And if you found that cake and you brought it to the bag monster with the blood on it, you'd go to his party room. And you'd eat the cake there and get transported to the next level automatically. Well, either that or you'd be lucky enough to find a white door out of nowhere. Right about here, I want to say, is where I found the bartender, or skeleton cloak thing turned bartender from before, and the girlfriend he'd just gotten back with, as well as a self-proclaimed avatar creator / voice actor. Right about here or so is where that self-proclaimed VA introduced me to a girl in an oversized sweater who was sitting in that fire over there. So along the way we met a few more people. There was at least one other world I wanted to show you, but I couldn't find the flashlights for some reason. Anyway, we were all just kind of here talking in this passageway from this area of the Black Cat to the main one. And it was right about here. It clicked in my mind. I was like, these people are going to be a regular friend group for me. Like, this is going to be a reoccurring thing. I think at the time I didn't really want to put too much stake in it, because I don't want to put too much stake in a lot of things. But that one wound up being true. It was a very interesting premonition, to be sure. Up here was where I was first included in a gossip sesh about each other, I guess. We were gossiping about the blossoming romance, seemingly, between a couple of our group members. Now, I know what you're probably thinking, okay? Why just now are we in the default homeworld? Well, for one, back in my day, it didn't have all these fucking bells and whistles. I think there was a campfire right here. None of these undulating lights and stones and planets and shit. And also because really the most impactful memory I have of the VRChat Home probably happened at about this point in the timeline. That very first friend from Chile that I made. He and I, well, for one, I could figure out how to function the colliders on this damn couch. But anyway, we sat on the couch and we talked about our career futures. He is bound for the medical field. I was at one point, but then ran into chemistry, and that led me to have kind of an existential crisis that led me towards psychology instead. And by that I mean I have a bachelor's degree in psychology, and I'm not doing any... We'll get to that later, actually. But yeah, we kind of just, we talked about our respective career passions and all that stuff, and I still remember that very fondly. Come to find out, that self-proclaimed VA had a brother. An older brother, who also played VRChat. And right about where you're sitting was where he was sitting when I met him. And he asked if he could have this vodka bottle in my hand. Like, this is like a bar space, so there was alcohol all around this map. But allegedly, people kept taking it away from him. He's really into Norse mythology and the like. He's always been super passionate about that. Right about here is where the older brother and I sat and had our first deep talk. We'd end up having a lot of those. This hot tub that we're in is probably the first of many sad spots for me. We'll get to that. This was the sad spot for me right here, whenever we'd hang out here in the Just Be Club 2. Like I said, we'll get to it. The beds in Just Be Club 3 served the same purpose as the ones in Just Be Club 2 did, though this time I could actually activate the colliders. This was the sad spot whenever we'd come here to Never Have I Ever Automated. So, this world has a Discord server, right? I joined it. It was pretty dead. People really only talked to each other who already knew each other. And so I left. And then the creator of the world liked me twice on Nevermet. The second time just a few days ago. Good times. No. So, about right here, in No Time to Talk, I think it might have been the same spot, actually, was where I met a dude in a Final Fantasy avatar with a witch hat. And then later on would go on to meet another dude in a Final Fantasy avatar with a witch hat. So, one of those Final Fantasy witch hat dudes from before had actually served for our country. And it was about here that I was just hanging out with everybody else when I heard his voice in the background. And that's when it kind of clicked in my mind that this guy was going to become a regular part of our friend group. He and I still talk a lot. We usually send each other memes and tweets about video gaming and anime things. The occasional skibbity toilet. Good times. This same spot from before would actually be a pretty frequent sad spot for me. We hung out in the Black Cat a lot. An interesting collection of events happened in this world. Both of them right here where we're sitting. I won't get into the specifics because that feels a bit too intimate even for this. But the long and the short of it is two different people from that friend group joined me and sat here with me and talked about their feelings for people. Whether they got them, whether they lost them, whether they were starting to get them. Right here. I think the last time I tried to make this documentary, I had said they'd happened a week apart, but my brain keeps telling me they happened the same night. Well, anyway. Whatever the truth of the matter is, this certainly is the sanctuary for pondering your feelings. Why don't we lay here together for a while? The weather changes. See? Yeah, so welcome to Project Summer Flare. I am so excited to show this to you.
2 hours later.
Whew, that was a time, wasn't it? Yeah, it's shit like this that really kind of set it in stone for me that VRChat is more than just a virtual world. It's a whole ass game platform. People have done so much cool shit with Udon. Udon being the main programming script for the people that make these worlds. Like, half the shit you could possibly think of, at least, is probably here somewhere. I forgot to show it to you before, but this was my sad spot whenever we hung out at Bar Hein. It would also turn into the spot where I would listen to a lot of the midnight and ponder a lot of my own feelings. This would be the start of something very new for me. And I mean, look how peaceful this is. I still come here and pop them on, most notably their orchestral album, Rearview Mirror, when I want to feel something. Right, so, I don't remember when I discovered this shit, but it was like crack for me at first. I don't remember who showed me this world, but it's one of my favorites now. I take all the new people here, because if they can't handle this shit, they can't handle me, right?
Hey, Vsauce! Michael here. What's normal? Are you normal?
This is another one of those where a few things happened. Or more like a couple. One of the dudes in the friend group, let's call him the Glizzy Globler. He laid down over... It was the end of the night, like everyone was logging off. He laid down over on that pad, and he fell asleep. Right beside me. I was just here. And that would not be the first time he did that. And also, way over there, if you can see that campfire, Norse mythology guy and a person he just met were starting to get on really, really well. One day, while looking at my online friends list and figuring out what I was going to do next, I saw that someone was here, on the bus to nowhere. And I was like, wow, that is a really interesting logo. It looks interesting. And so I stopped by, and my life's never been the same since. I would even wind up doing a whole playthrough of all the endings and all the bosses on this damn thing. It took probably about a total of 2 weeks. I'm not joking. One of the endings involves you staying on this bus for 100,000 miles, which takes 10 real days, so... I mean... prepare to have this fucking game be your second life if you're going for that one. I did it, and I have it on video. And yet, I will still never get tired of this place. Oh, and something funny happened one night in December while I was on this bus. 2 love confessions happened in the same night. One I only heard about over Discord after the fact, and the other happened right on this bus. Right in front of my ears. 'Cause they ended up coming up here, I was on the bottom floor. When they were actually telling each other how they felt. But The stupid thing is that the first one ended up working out for a couple of years. The second one never took off. But that is still one of the funniest things that has ever happened to me. This is where we all gathered one night and had a shitpost night. I mean, obviously you got aesthetic lo-fi going on now, but there were shitposts aplenty going on that screen that night, and God, I wish I had people to do that with anymore. I couldn't show you the worlds all this had happened in, but somewhere along the line I had met a man in a black sweater. And here was when he and I laid right here, and we learned that we both had autism. I mean, obviously I knew I had autism, but then I learned that he had autism too. So it was like, yay, tism buddies. I don't remember exactly what hole it was, I just know that it was here when I kind of came to the determination that, guess what I had for the dude in the black sweater? Feelings! Hey, let's go, right? Shit. Fuck. So, one night, because I was lonely, I reached out to Glizzy Globler and I asked, how the hell do you talk to people in public so easily? And he took me here. And he had been friends with a stormtrooper that joined us, and he became my friend too. I think I am the first person to find a stormtrooper at a Kmart. The man in the black sweater and I were here, and he did something rather weird. Actually, at the time, he was in the same avatar as me, just with different customizations. But he came up, like, right here. And it ended up, I was holding him like a baby. Right here. Like this. Like, his feet were on the ground, but his head was, like, right here. And, I mean, based off of recent discoveries, I was fucking living that moment. But to this day, it still baffles me how the fuck it happened. Eventually, New Year's Eve came around. We were about to ring in 2023, in particular. I failed to mention that guy in the black sweater was from Australia. So his New Year's was at 8 a.m. our time. And so guess where I was at 8 a.m. my time. Right here. Ringing in the Melbourne New Year. I did it this past year too. Just for sentimental reasons. So, spoiler alert. I got fed up and ended up confessing my feelings to Australian man. And lo and behold, he basically said same, and we ended up in a relationship. And I remember this world, this spot, as being one of the first ones we ever really cuddled at. And I remember I mentioned to him that I had looked up flights to Australia, and they were over $1,000. So, perhaps that was an omen. And this is where my boyfriend and I were standing when he sent me a picture of his face for the first time, and vice versa. We're all dumb once, okay? This is where a bunch of us sat in the back one time while Norse mythology dude drove. And we just kind of shot the shit back here. I also recorded most of it. So that was my first ever VRChat video. Still one of my favorites, to be honest. Your son can watch you drive drunk too. What a great dad you are.
Hey, babe, was that a cockroach on top of you? On top of your head?
No one can outscare me, except for me.
He is being chillin'.
Please do not make this fucking. Please do not turn someone into my uncle.
You don't eat pussy. I like making people laugh.
Hey, you gotta start somewhere.
Bro, I'm jealous. I want a cat on my foot.
out of the car.
It's just my hot mix playlist.
God, my dick.
What if I snap everyone here in half?
Wow.
So, somewhere along the line, the self-proclaimed VA had found himself a girlfriend. And this is where they got VRChat married. And I got to be a bridesmaid. I think I was standing, like, right here-ish. Oh, this avatar. Thanks. I found it in a blind panic, because the one you always see me in is very poor. Also worth noting, I was on desktop for this wedding because I did not want to crash. And I didn't crash, so... Task successfully. That did not word right in my head. This song playing in the background right now is a song that the Midnight decided to make YouTube exclusive for some reason. I don't know what the decision was behind that, but... Regardless, I mean, this world was based off of the art for that single, so I feel like it really captures the feeling, and that's why I like it so much. Unfortunately, over time, my feelings for the Australian man had kind of changed and devolved, I guess. No fault of his own. I guess I just kind of realized what I wanted, so... I mean, I wish I didn't have to do it in an Avatar world, but it was the way it worked out. I broke up with him here. He said he wanted to still be friends, and I was more than happy to take him up on that. But we fell out of touch anyway. Guess it just wasn't meant to be. I hope he's doing alright. So, I'm sure you've asked yourself plenty of times by now, Fuhl, what the fuck is a sad spot? Well, all those spots that I showed you. A sad spot is what I like to call, whenever I'd be hanging out with this particular friend group, if we were in a world, it was the spot where I would go to when I started to get really sad. But how can hanging out with a friend group make you sad? Well, the long and the short of it is that there was a favorite. There was a ringleader. A lot of times the hangout would just evolve into her chasing the others, getting chased and teased by the others, and we'd just be watching. Like, that was really what, especially later on, what a lot of it felt like it boiled down to. Even my boyfriend at the time was doing it. Even he was doing it. And I told him how I felt, and he still continued to do it. I remember one time we were in a world that doesn't exist anymore, and I'm really sad about that because it's really cool. But he hadn't, like, one of the guys hadn't been on for a while, and he joined, and he was like, "Oh, I'm so glad to see everybody again, especially you." Name of the name of the favorite. That one really fucking hurt. Because it really kind of hammered in, like, how I felt. And then one time in the Discord server, like, I'm not one to normally go around posting self-deprecating memes and jokes all the time, but I did this one time, and I got pretty much nothing from it. And she went and posted one a little bit after, and she got all the affirmations and reactions from it. Like, I'm not normally one to put a lot of stake in that kind of thing, but it was definitely noticeable that day. Toward the end, I honestly felt like I was just being blatantly left behind. And even if it wasn't for all that, even if it wasn't for there being any favoritism or anything like that, more and more people were joining that friend group. To a certain point, I felt like it was more of a nightclub than anything. And you know me, I don't do well with nightclubs. It was just kinda stacking taller and taller into a really bad situation that would give me a lot of... It gave me a legitimate mental breakdown one time. And I guess one day, my neurons were firing just right. And I was like, you know, every time I hang out with this group, it feels like I am just trying to win their affection. I go in thinking, oh, maybe today will be different. Maybe I will be good enough for their affection. I mean, it's a little less drastic than that, but that's the best way I can put it. And it's not like I didn't get any attention at all from them, like, I did. But the difference was very clear. And not just to me. Like, I thought about that too, because, like, I know I have jealousy issues. I've brought it up with my therapist. It's on the list, after we deal with some other things. Like, I know that's there. And I knew that was a factor in all of this. But it definitely felt like an external thing too. So, before I did anything drastic, I consulted a few of the people that had seen this go on. And I was like, you know, this is how I feel. This is what I notice. You know, be honest with me. Am I just being jealous? And all the people I talked to agreed with me. They either said they noticed it too, or that how I felt was valid. So, I take that to mean I'm not just being a jealous bitch. So, I set up my plan. I made the drastic decision to basically, you know, leave the Discord servers, leave the VRChat groups, block and unfriend everybody. Not everybody, but like most everybody in that group. Cut myself off from it, step into a new chapter of my life. I would say a clean slate, but a few people were left over, and I'm very grateful to them. And it all happened right here. I left silent messages on Discord explaining myself to the key players, and then I just kind of purged. And after I did so, I genuinely took a look around, and I was like, wow, you know, I used to log on to VRChat being like, oh, you know, who's on? Will I be as loved today? That kind of thing. But no longer. I took a look around at the rocks, the trees, the sky, the birds, the leaves and the water, and I was like, I feel like I can finally enjoy VRChat for what it really is again. A game where you can craft beautiful worlds beyond your comprehension and enjoy them. Now, granted, I was lonely too. There was a deep pit of loneliness growing in my heart after all this, because I just lost a bunch of friends after all. But, and oftentimes, I do still miss them. Because a lot of them were really great people. But it had to be done. I would have just continued to be hurt myself. I guess it depends. I just would have continued to be in pain. But I do hope they're doing okay. I guess one of them is a boyfriend now. That's good. Another one has a girlfriend now. I'm happy for him. This is one of the first new worlds I found after that whole purge. And honestly, it really kind of put into perspective how lonely everything was now. But I still like it. Like, look at this sunset. Look at the cranes, and it's still a very pretty place. I really wish I would have found it under better circumstances. So, in late 2023 or so, I took the plunge and I bought all the parts to build my own PC, rather than the shitty laptop I was using. It's got an RTX 4060 and 16 gigabytes of RAM. So I built that. It was a labor of love. Kinda had the difficulty of almost like I was giving birth to my own child, so I call it my child. But it's what I use today. And shortly after I built it and got it all set up and stuff, I had a brief phase where I tried out VR nightclubbing in places like Club Orion. That was the main one, I think, but there's some others out there. And this was my homeworld at the time. And so this is where I would set up my full body and all that. Yeah. So, around this time was when I really started meeting most of my new people through Nevermet, which I mentioned once or twice in the past, but it's basically Tinder for VRChat, but like slightly better, I think. But I met someone in particular. He was also a content creator, and this was the first world that we met in. We stood right here and we talked for a bit. And I'm still vibing with the music, all things considered. And before we knew it, 2024 came around. I had been talking to this one guy a little more, and at the time, I really liked him. New Year's Eve night, I had just met some of his friends, and they were pretty dead set on doing their own thing, but I wanted to come here to ring in the new year. So I did. I had one of my friends surprise me, and then, like 5 seconds before the clock rang midnight, that group of friends from before came from behind and surprised me by showing up just in time. All things considered, that is still really impressive. That's one of my favorite memories. And this is where that guy I was talking to said he was just trying to be nice when I declined his offer for him to send me a mouse, which would have involved me giving him my address. How the fuck did we end up in Lethal Company? This poorly textured piece of shit is my creation. That's right. This is my first ever VR chat world. I think a big part of it was that, like, most of this was modeled like a year or so before it would actually be implemented. And I didn't know what flipping normals or any of that was. And some of the textures just refused to transfer over to the final product no matter what I did. But, you know, this is my baby. I still love her. I've been talking to another guy for a while, and when we were finally able to hang out on VRChat, it was him and his group of friends here in Putt Putt Quest, and we had a real good time. But my heart was like, hey, we might really like this guy. And then what happens? Someone else joins. They walk up to him. He goes up to them. He goes like, moi. Saw the visual in my eye. My heart sliced in two with a samurai sword. Fucking the universe was out to get me that day. This right here, this is my favorite homeworld ever. Look at the rain. Look at the rain on the window. Look at the lighting, dude. It's everything. It's perfect. It's also where another guy I just met and I were standing right here, and we were just kind of standing there in silence, and I was like, you know, this could really turn into something, whether it's romantic or friendly. I'm really feeling the start of something good here. Welcome, welcome to Pseudo-Therapy, my second VRChat creation, my second VRChat world, and the one I'm actually pretty kind of proud of. I do have some formal education. This bitch went to college. I have a bachelor's in psychology, and this is literally all I've used it for. Now, it's not real therapy. However, it's a listening ear. I used a total of 3 Udon scripts, not counting the Pro TV up there, to create a sort of button-focused speech and response system. So, if you are to press this button right here, you'll come to the first room, which will ask you how you're doing, and the conversation will go from there. This was months of work, and I actually have a lot of pride in it. Oh my god. So I would love for you to maybe, you know, check it out thoroughly and give me some feedback and stuff. Because, I mean, I've always believed that the way to make the world a better place is to harness the psychology behind all the wrong. And I think giving everybody at least a listening ear is the first step in doing so. Well, I want to say that's it for now. I mean, my story here probably isn't even half over. I'm only about to be 26. I plan on continuing to play this game. I plan on continuing to make content for this game. I'm still on Nevermit, meeting new people. Here's the funny thing. A lot of my best friends right now, we could hardly even play this game. One of my best friends, actually, we only ever talk about Helldivers. And he touched this game for maybe like 3 minutes while I was on one time. And now we have a faction together. But that aside, I mean, I hope you know that it's not all just pedophiles and ERP and couples and all that. Like, don't get me wrong, that shit does happen and you need to be very careful. But I'm just saying, that's not all it is. For a lot of people like me, it's, you know, first relationships, heartbreaks, games, and just all around good memories. Now, we got like 99,940 something miles to go. Strap in. It's gonna be a long one.